My name is Ciarán Ó Dochartaigh and I'm an artist and researcher. I make mixed media work ranging from sculpture, drawings, print, moving image. I make a lot of collaborative work as well. It's a big part of the work. The title of the show at the CCA is Ferox. This is quite an important part of the show because Ferox is a type of brown trout, and it's a very large brown trout that's become predatory and cannibalistic and eats other brown trout and Arctic char. Loch East has a very specific ecology that was the only lake in Ireland that had one population of Arctic char by itself, which has now been altered forever because of human intervention. The project started a few years ago, and it was partly informed by this residency I did in France at Lac de Vesuvier. I was working with some of the local artisans in the community. A big part of this exhibition is about sort of personal and political histories. On a personal level, I was really moved and sort of changed forever by sort of what happened to my father. He had his stomach removed in this sort of radical procedure. That process meant that his small intestine was actually turned into a new stomach. I just found the whole process of what happened to him totally unbelievable. It's just shocking to me still to think that somebody's organs, like internal organs, can be altered in such a way. That sort of embodiment and that sort of materiality of the stomach is a big part of this project. There's a crossover between the sort of ecological and environmental impact of how we have engaged with nature and his stomach. Beside this imagined exhumed stomach, I also have this enlarged marrow scoop, an instrument used to exhume the stomach contents of a fish to find out what the fish has been eating. So when you place the marrow scoop inside the stomach and remove the contents, you have an idea of what the diet that fish has been on recently, and the less broken down food contents is the last type of food that the fish has been eating. So by that you can deduce what type of insects or flies the fish has been eaten, and then you mimic that with your own flies that you use, so it increases your chances of catching the fish. I just thought these parallels was quite interesting on a personal level and a sort of ecological level. There was this very powerful testimony from Dr. Raymond McLean, who was involved and who witnessed the autopsies after Bloody Sunday. They found that they had the same partially digested food, which was roast beef, potatoes and peas. And I find that whole connection between the ecology of the fish and the landscape, and how this landscape has been shaped by the sort of trauma of our interference, and also partly the trauma of the recent conflict. Oral history is something that really drives the work. Memories, anecdotes, local sort of stories, storytelling, family histories, extended family histories, whatever family might mean, but that's our community. And these stories and anecdotes, I really find it fascinating. The table at the CCA is actually a big chunk of the research. It's actually in two parts at the CCA. It's a round table and it is halved. One half is in this grey space, the acoustic space, and the other half is mounted on the wall in a semicircle. That has got like these terms of research that were important to the project and how the project grew. But before it was in the CCA, it was actually out on a field trip to Loch East, and it was used there as like a sort of holding space, like a research space that would be used as like this protracted artist talk type work. The project event did go ahead, but it just took on this strange unpredictable outcome. And the nicest, most interesting part of the event was at dusk, because the wind was coming in, the rain was coming in, it was getting dark, it was like submerged in the water, and there was all these things happening with the lights shining through from underneath and illuminating all the research areas. And there was the flies on top of the table and these different materials that were used to make the flies. So the whole thing sort of came together in this strange event stroke film shoot at the lake. The thing about working or using this lake as research material and also using it on a personal level, it's like you're not outside of that, you're complicit in it as well. So the thing is, you've got this culmination of people and the environment, and the lake's ecology is altered forever. It is a microcosm of issues and problems that we're facing right now, be it the pollution, water extraction, how it's changing the beds of the lake, how the environment's changing, and it is being changed in a way that it can't be reversed. That's a fact, Part of the work in here involves these binaural microphones and how they're used. You've got like these sculpture ears, donkey ears and horse ears, that hold the microphones. This idea of working with the donkeys and the equine grew out of the residency at Lac de Vassivier in France. As the project evolved, I actually worked with a horse whisperer. It was as much about how we could learn to communicate from the likes of a horse whisperer, how they use the idea of sight and eye contact and a sort of gentle approach to communicating, and not about discipline, but ways of like negotiating and communicating with each other. It's another way to understand how trauma and traumatic experiences can be dealt with and lamented with a different perception. I worked specifically with ceramicists, and I purposely just worked with the glazes that they use. The ceramic colours dictated what other colours I would use. So everything has a knock-on effect to the colours. Elsewhere in the space, I chose quite vibrant pink to frame some of the other works. So you have this vibrancy in the pink and the black table and the grey ceramics against the grey floor, and then you've got these pops of pink throughout the space. It's almost like the pinks become like punctuation marks around the space, or different points of departure onto something else. There's quite a few wood-turned objects that work with the ceramic pieces, and they both work off each other, and they were originally designed to be versions of massage tools, but they've taken their own life or their own sort of process through each other. And there's like a granite bases that are used as a holding device, but also as a practical preparation device for food, for grinding materials. And then there's these different pink sort of objects that are hosted. Different objects are waiting to host different objects and haven't quite managed to host other objects, so they just are there by themselves. During the duration of the show, it's going to be interactive, and there's going to be a day or with a series of workshops and events, and there's going to be like an invited guest such as a horse whisperer, and with the idea of activating the work here, particularly in this area where there's sound equipment with the binaural mics and the tools. The tools will be reconstituted again, reused in different ways from what the original purpose was. So the tools may be sound making artifacts. They could be like used as punctuation. They could be used for just helping in these narratives, and people can come with narratives that they have, or memories, or anecdotes, and have groupings within the day. And the horse whisperer will be like a conduit to talk about some of the broader issues in the show.